Hey there, welcome back to the Tempest Rising mod. This is the mod that adds 100 plus new ships, and I still hadn't reviewed a couple of nations. So let's have a look. You are going to see some potentially weird cut-ups slash adjusted models, such as what we have over here. You can see that we have the flight deck that supposedly of this Australia class aircraft carrier is, I'd say, a bit of a regular flight deck, but then it also has the missile launchers, which I don't believe it can actually use. Anyway, we're going to start off with these guys over here. Australia. Australia has their own aircraft carrier now. I'm not sure how exactly they are funding this, because in my memory the Australian Navy isn't that large. But then again, Tempest Rising has an entirely alternate history. That would explain why you're seeing an aircraft carrier in the hands of the Australians. So what does this thing do? Well, it has, weapon-wise, a very interesting loadout. Standard Missile 1, nothing too special. It can defend itself, great. But an Ikara? An Ikara is an anti-submarine weapon. And it allows you to deliver a torpedo up to 27 miles away from the aircraft carrier. Why? I have my aircraft for that, right? I have my aircraft. I have an S3G. This thing can drop sonobuoys, it can drop torpedoes, it can even drop a harpoon if you're feeling like it. Why would I need to have an Ikara on my aircraft carrier? Anyway, maybe the story is going to explain that. First proposed in the early 1960s, CVA-1 program was devised as a replacement for all existing fleet carriers in the Royal Navy fleet, all of which are World War II vintage in design and in some cases construction as well. Blah, blah, blah. 3 carriers with shows 1972, 1974, 1976. Here. Australia would also order a CVA-1 of their own in 1969 to be dubbed the HMAS Australia. She would be laid down in 1970, completed in 1975, entering RAN service that year. I'm not sure why this thing has an Ikara. There's not really an explanation for that. Anyway, she can of course not just deliver her own weaponry, she can also send out her own aircraft. And to that end she has the F4G, armed with the AIM-7M. Not my favorite missile, but most of the time it gets the job done. This thing also comes equipped with the AIM-9L, Mark 82 and 83 bombs, AGM-45 if you want to do some anti-radiation homing. So this thing can definitely take out radar targets as well. And I am very interested in seeing what sort of loadout we're going to get. Yeah. If you're going for a seed loadout, like I am here, you can have 2 Shrikes and 2 Sparrows. This is going to allow you to, I'd say, to some extent, escort your own strike units, hit the enemy radars with your seed missiles, and if the enemy sends an aircraft back at you, you're still going to be able to hit them with a Sparrow. So in that sense, they definitely have some very, very high utility. We have the A6 Gulf, Mark 82, 83 bombs, more bombs, AGM-123 Skipper, if you want to go in close against surface targets, and of course the Harpoon Bird. Aside from that, I'm seeing the E2G, that's their flying observation platform, the S3, the RA5, and finally the SH3G. This one equipped with a couple of different gears to deal with enemy submarines, but also notably carries the Exocet. So, if for some reason all of your strike aircraft are busy, you might be able to use Sea Kings in order to deliver some Exocets. But please take note that this missile range will likely get you into trouble. Alright, moving on. We have another ship over here. This is the Neptune class. Yes, if you're playing World of Warships, that is that Neptune. And it has been modernized, thank God, otherwise this would be drastically out of place. It carries a couple of Seawolf defensive missiles. Well, it carries a lot of them actually, 96. It has some harpoons, and beyond that, it is just a gun cruiser. Nothing too special really about this Neptune. Hunter class. The Hunter class is their version of the Kid. There aren't really any particular changes that I have been seeing. These ships are equipped with a Standard Missile 1 missile launcher via twin Mark 26 launchers, robust sonar suite, Sea Sprite helicopter. It just seems to be a Kid. The class integrates US-built systems with Australian modifications, making the Hunter the most powerful surface combatants in the Royal Australian Navy upon their introduction. Okay, they might be the strongest, but I'm not really getting the vibe of these things have a lot of firepower. Yes, they have standard missiles, but only out to 25 miles. Outside of that, you got strike missiles out to 65 miles in the form of the Harpoon. You have your own ASW suite in the form of you have your helicopters. Outside of that, yeah, you got an ASROC launcher if you're feeling very adventurous and want to close in with a submarine, but I would highly encourage you not to. I don't think it's going to be that interesting of a ship. Brisbane. The Brisbane is, here we go, it's a Charles F. Adams design, but modified for Australian requirements. Commissioned between 1965 and 1970, the ships provide area air defense via the Tartar missile system. Which I don't actually see here. That's unfortunate. And later upgrades enabled limited anti-ship and point defense capabilities. So she does come with the Harpoons, she comes with standard missiles, she has her own Ikara, much like the aircraft carrier does. She has a couple of torpedoes, she does not have a helicopter. This is quite important, because it means that if you want to do anti-submarine warfare with these, you can, but you're going to have to use your active sonar. So, in that sense, they are somewhat more fragile, especially with an active range of only 13 miles. You might find something, but only if you're looking directly at it. Because, of course, active sonar doesn't really ping towards the stern. Finally, for the Australians, we have the Adelaide, and doesn't that look familiar? Because it's an Oliver Hazard Perry class variant. These guys, I believe, came with the Ikara, but I'm wrong about that. Designed for Australian service with improved communication systems and accommodations, armed with Mark 13 launchers for standard and Harpoon missiles, and featuring a flight deck and hangar for 2 helos. The Adelaide class provides significant capability in escorting patrol operations across the Pacific and Indian Oceans. So these guys do have a towed array, they do have a towed decoy, they have their sonar array, air search, surface search. It's, well, it's basically just a Perry. And that's not bad, because I really appreciate the Oliver Hazard Perry class, because it's so versatile. It can basically do everything. It doesn't mean it can do everything very well, especially offense is limited, because your Harpoons are going to have to come up with that launcher there on the bow, one by one, as opposed to, for example, the Hunter class, which has them in quads over there on midships. But outside of that, I find these little ships to be, well, not that little. I find them to be very capable ships. Alright, moving on. Canadians. This is the Montreal. Montreal is another ship that has been sort of kit-bashed together. And you can see that she comes equipped with some very nice long-range missiles. A standard missile to extend range, 80-mile range, allowing you to shoot down anything that flies up very high. Low-flying targets are going to be much more difficult, if not impossible, to target. As for the rest, she comes equipped with the Seawolf, inherited or bought from the British. Definitely not my favorite missile, because they just don't work that well, and that range is pretty problematic. Outside of that, we once again see the Ikara, allowing you to shoot submarines at range. They will also allow you to detect submarines at range with the Sea Sprite, and they do have an active sonar, but no towed array. I'd say these are more geared towards air warfare, or rather anti-air warfare. These were gifted from the Crown, unofficially gifts from the Crown, with the Canadian government only paying a symbolic price for each ship. Alright. Then we have the Asiniban. Some weird things going on here, because if I pull up the unit reference, it shows me the Neptune class. So maybe that's a sort of a stay behind. But this thing is a modified and much improved Neptune, armed with a couple of Seawolves for self-defense, as well as Harpoons for offense. And if you have expended all of your 8 Harpoons, well, it is 6-inch gun time. So you're going to close to 16 miles or die trying to get there. Outside of that, it does not come equipped with a helicopter. It does not even come equipped with a sonar. So any submarine is going to eat you. You are definitely going to want to escort this thing. For landing operations, amphibious operations if you will, I would say this is a very useful unit to attach to a task force, because those 6-inch guns can definitely do some work against surface targets. Quebec. Interesting unit design. Interesting unit design. Acquired as a part of a program in the 1970s to modernize the Royal Canadian Navy. The Ontario class are 4 guided missile destroyers based directly on the British Sheffield class. All 4 destroyers were in service between 1975 and 1978. Sea Dart SAM system, 90 miles. Now we're getting somewhere, thank you Britain. They also carry some ability to punch, but limited. Only 4 excess sets are installed on this ship, which I'd say makes it much more defensive. Yes, this thing can target surface units as well. However, you're going to have line of sight. That's with your radar, of course. So that kind of limits the effectiveness of that missile quite a lot, because you're looking at a range of about 25 miles. Outside of that, you got your 4.5-inch gun, you got your anti-submarine torpedo, you do have a flight deck, and these things can be loaded out with ASW, but unfortunately for you, they cannot be loaded out with anti-ship missiles. And finally, the Edmonton. Edmonton for the Canadian Navy, acquired as a part of the program in the late 1960s to modernize the Royal Canadian Navy. The Kingstons are 6 frigates based directly on the American Brooke class, modified with Ikara. There we go again. They only carry 4? Okay. Modified with Ikara, British Mark 8 4.5-inch gun, and other more minor modifications. All 6 frigates would enter service by 1974. It seems like a bit of a lightly armed ship, but that might be my take on it. It carries 22 missiles, it has 4 anti-submarine missiles, it has a helicopter, but again, only ASW. So I'd say this is heavily focused on dealing with submarines, because against surface ships, you are just shit out of luck. You don't have any options beyond the standard missile, so you're going to have to close to 25 miles, and any Soviet ship's going to go, huh, that's cute. I'm going to shoot you from 378 miles away, so I doubt that you would ever get that close to a Soviet warship, unless for some reason the scenario designer has let you. Next up, the Japanese, and yes, this is another aircraft carrier-esque ship. This is Azuma. The Azuma is part of the Shikishima class aircraft carriers. They are capable of launching Harriers, and a couple of HSS-2B helos. Definitely geared towards anti-submarine warfare, capable of dropping sonobuoys. Interestingly, I'm not seeing the active version of the sonobuoy, but then again, they do have a dipping sonar. So that helps. And of course, Mark 46 if you want to kill something. We can load out our Harriers with the, I'd say, traditional loadouts. You have AIM-9s, AIM-7s, but also the AGM-84 Harpoon. So you can definitely go after ships with these things. How many will you carry then? They even got a seat loadout, but well, that's basically a Rockeye. Anti-ship gives you 2 harpoons. Well, I suppose it's better than the alternative, which is not having them, such as some of the American ships. And that leaves you pretty vulnerable. Geez, you carry 16 of those. Okay, that's a lot of helos for ASW. In my playthroughs, well, I haven't used this specific ship yet, but I typically have 2 to 3 helos searching, or 2 to 3 planes searching for submarines. I don't need 16 helicopters to search for that. Loadout for themselves, standard 2 missile medium range, 40-mile range. They have RUR-5, that is the depth charge launcher, or rather the SROC, so 6-mile range, standoff anti-submarine weapon. I don't really understand why that's installed if I have 16 helicopters capable of keeping everything away from me. RIM-7 as a second layer anti-air defense. So we have Sea Sparrows on top of the other missile launcher. Here, there's the Sea Sparrow. We have a Mark 45 gun. And the Mark 45 gun, I think, is on... there, on the stern, there's one. And they got another one on the bow. So, mildly capable of doing some coastal bombardment. And finally, some seaways to defend yourself. What is next? The Iwaki. The Iwaki is another missile cruiser for the Japanese. Of course, self-defense navy, but that's, let's say, in reality. This is a mod with alternate history, so you're going to have to take the Japanese as a slightly less self-defense-y force. Standard Missile 2 ER, extended range. We have harpoons, and that is a loadout of 8 harpoons. We have 20 ASROCs, and we have 16 torpedoes. I gotta say, I don't think I have launched an ASW torpedo from a ship. Maybe more than 5 times in the entirety of playing this game, which has been about 10 months by now. I only used this as an absolute last-ditch effort, and while most ships carry them, I typically don't let ships get that, or subs get that close. Same for the ASROC. As I think Jingles would say, I can count the amount of times I've used this on the fingers of one head. You just don't use the ASROC. The Akara, yes. The Akara I can get behind, because that's 27-mile range. That's useful. The rest of it, not as much. Anyway, forgive me. These are not missile cruisers. These are guided missile destroyer leaders. Yeah, we're just gonna sell them a little different. Japanese first Aegis surface combatants, based on the proven Belknap class hull. Designed to serve as the core of a task force of air defense, these ships combined the American Aegis tech with Japanese sensor integration and command systems. Each carried the powerful Spy 1 radar system, Standard Missile 2 ER, as well as a large magazine. Yes, they carry 60 of these missiles. I do see some weakness, of course, because yes, they have these nice long-range missiles, but they cannot send them out very quickly, which means that you're going to find yourself at a disadvantage if the enemy decides to throw lots of missiles at you. And if they're flying low, if they're sea skimming, you might not be able to get those missiles away quick enough. A 152mm gun, robust ASW suite including Sea King, allowing them to operate independently or with a carrier task force. 4 ships were commissioned between 1983 and 1985. That's a very high launch rate for ships. Despite being based upon cruiser hulls, they were officially designated as destroyer leaders, something to make them more palatable politically, as the term guided missile cruiser was seen as too offensive in nature. Yes, well, for not a cruiser, it carries a lot of firepower. Amagi. The Amagi, for some maybe recognizable as a name of a battleship, has been recycled for this destroyer class. They are Japanese premier guided missile destroyers, late 1970s, based on a modified Charles F. Adams. So we're going to see Standard Missile 1, harpoons, ASROCs, there we go again, ASW, and no flight deck. You do have active sonar. They were effective multi-role platforms and formed the backbone of fleet defense until the arrival of the Iwaki. So that is the not a missile cruiser over there. What I think they lack is a flight deck. Because if you are going to be posing as a multi-role platform, and you might not be... Well, look, yeah, they're doing fleet defense. Anyway, multi-role does imply for me that they can do both air defense, check, and anti-submarine warfare. Got no helicopter. And your only option to deal with submarines is to close to within their kill range and shoot them with a torpedo. Buyer beware with the Amagi. Buyer beware. And then, Macasa. The Macasa is something slightly larger. They're modified Spruant class designs, tailored for the Japanese need, armed with surface strike and shore bombardment with a single 8-inch Mark 71 gun. So, that's interesting. They got that one 203mm dual-purpose gun out to 15.8 mile range. So they can provide some, let's say some shore bombardment capabilities. You won't fire fast, but it'll definitely hit a lot harder than your 6 or your 5-inch gun. 2 phalanx and an ASW suite including 2 helos. Designed to provide multi-domain capability and independent strike power, they offered long endurance and excellent seakeeping. These ships operated as part of high-intensity surface action groups. 12 were commissioned between 1976 and 1983. You're launching 2 ships a year. It's impressive. What do we find on them? The Sea Sparrow. Oops. The Sea Sparrow. 8 missiles, 30-minute reload. Good luck. And only 14-mile range. If the Japanese get shot at, and this is defending, or rather this is fighting alone, and they get shot at by 10 missiles, you're done. At least the Sea Sparrow is not going to save you. Maybe the Sea Whiz will be able to stop something. I suppose if you're getting really lucky, you can have the Mark 46 and the Mark 71 gun... Sorry, the Mark 71 and the Mark 45 gun do something useful. But you're just a little light on air defense. As for offense, they carry 16 harpoons. See, now we're talking. This thing can shoot back as well as it can take it. Rather, not take it. As for helos, we are loading them out with a couple of HSS2 only for ASW loadouts. Beyond that, we got the 20mm, the chaff, the flares, whatever. And then the Asuka. Asuka is a Nox class hull optimized for ASW and patrol duties. So to that end, to that ASW role, they're getting the ASRock. They're getting 22 Mark 46 torps. What the fuck? Who needs that many? Okay. We got only one helo. Get rid of all the torpedo launchers and their ammo stowage and give me a second helicopter and I'll be perfectly happy. These guys are fitted with ASRock, a bow sonar, variable depth sonar. See, that is interesting. Two triple torpedo tubes. Lacking long-range SAMs, they relied on accompanying vessels for air cover, but their quiet operation and long endurance made them ideal for independent patrols and convoy escort. Sure, so long as they're not getting shot at by anything. Because they cannot defend themselves. They have a Sea Whiz. They have a Mark 42. They have 0 surface-to-air missiles. Nothing. Very, very, very dangerous design choice here. Because if you get shot at, and even one missile comes for you, you're gonna better hope that it's either gonna be chaff or the Sea Whiz that saves you, because you got no other options. This thing is gonna blow up just nicely. And then finally, the French. The French have the Charlemore. That is their aircraft carrier. This thing is loaded out with the Mirage F4M, capable of going after aircraft with the Super 530M. 48-mile range, so better than Sparrows. Semi-active medium to long-range air-to-air missile, roughly analogous, yeah, roughly. With the AIM-7, it's an upgrade over the preceding R530, because this is the Super R530. Aside from that, we got the 550s, that's short range, and of course, if everything fails, you got a gun, I was going to say, but no, that's the Exocet. The Exocet air-launched, however, does not get, what, 21, 22-mile range? It gets 35. So that means you're going to have some strike capability with your Mirages. And you load 5 Exocets on them. Not bad. Not bad. What I especially like about that 35-mile range is you can fly low enough to still be safe. So you can fly low enough under the radar, the enemy won't detect you, you pop up, you throw 5 Exocets, you turn around, and you run away. And that way, ideally, you will not get shot at. What else do they carry? A7Es. Capable of going out after targets with sidewinders, but that's mostly defensive. Mark 82 bombs, AGM 62 walleye, TV camera guided weapons, cluster bombs, AGM 45 Shrikes for dealing with enemy radars. We have Zuni rocket pods if you're feeling ambitious, and of course Exocets. How many do you carry? 6. Okay. Impressive. Pretty good. What else? E2C for observation, S3A for anti-submarine duty, and we have the RA5, at least the French version of it. So that's your observation aircraft. I don't really use these things that often, but they do have a role. Because sometimes your E2C is either going to be unable to get closer to the enemy, let's say air defense, and still can't see anything. The RA5 in that case is an option to get closer and use the TV camera to start spotting things a little better. It just has absolutely no weapons. So this is just a recon bird and doesn't do anything else. And then we have the SA-321 Marine Nationale helicopter capable of going after surface targets, again with Exocet. We have the E-15, that's a torpedo, and we have the L-3, which is also a torpedo? Huh. This helicopter's unique party trick is the ability to air-launch the Exocet in the ship. That's some party trick. Interesting. This is an anti-surface torpedo at 8 miles. Look at the oof. Your anti-submarine range, or rather, anti-submarine torpedo range is only 2.8 miles. Yikes. Very, very, very low range. So, if you are coming under attack from this thing, you might even be able to outrun it flat. Or you just need to keep ahead of it for long enough, which isn't that long, and you'll be fine. The other one, I really would not know when you use this, because it implies that you can get close enough to an enemy warship to throw a torpedo in their face. That warship, whatever you're targeting, probably isn't too enthusiastic about your presence in the first place. So they will shoot you down, either with a missile. They're gonna send a plane after you if they have that capability, or they're going to use something like a Mark V gun. Oh, sorry, a 5-inch gun. And especially the Russian ships, they got loads and loads and loads of options. So I'm not sure exactly how or when you're gonna use that particular torpedo. Next up in the French Navy editions, we have the Forba. A bit of a gun cruiser. Sorry, a gun destroyer. Conceived in the mid-1960s to modernize the Aeronaval Surface Escort Force, Forba-class destroyers, officially designated as the Contre-Torpilleur, were based on the American Farragut-class hull, but featured an entirely French sensor and weapon suite. As medium area air defense and general purpose escorts, they were intended to accompany the new Charlemore aircraft carriers and replacing aging T-47 and T-53 destroyers. They're armed with a Mascura NG system aft and 8 Exocet missiles amidships. The class carried 2 5-inch guns forward. 16 ships built between 1966 and 1976, and they formed the core of the carrier escort group well into the 1990s. Okay, so what do you have? You got the Mascura. Oh, sorry, the Masurka. 40-mile anti-air range, as well as anti-surface. Medium-range surface-to-air missile system designed for fleet area defense. Entering service in the 1960s, it was fitted aboard several French missile cruisers and provided protection against high-speed, high-altitude threats. While large and cumbersome by later standards, it marked a critical step in France's naval development and remained in limited service into the 2000s. How do you send them? Is that thing? I'm kind of thinking... No, that's... I would say that's Cotal. Is that it? I can send it after another warship. Sort of. Just got a minimum range, which is a bit of a problem. Actually, let's send it after the aircraft carrier. While she's getting out of range, we also have the Cotal as a self-defense missile. 15-mile range, anti-aircraft, short-range, surface-to-air missile system developed by the French for point defense against aircraft and missiles developed in the early 1970s. This is close-in air defense to supplement longer-range air defense like Masurka or Sridart. Do we have minimum range? We do have minimum range. Yep. Oh, there. Interesting. They got a launcher on the stern for that. I completely missed that. Okay. Can we actually intercept that? There's the fire control radar. And there's the Cotal. Yes. Well, we hit them, I think. Yeah, the aircraft carrier took a bit of a scratch. Yeah, that's fine. So that is that weapon system, and that's where it launches from. You can now return to formation. As for the rest, no helo. This thing is air defense, and that is its primary role, which I think it does pretty well with this loadout. You got some longer range options. I'm not going to say long range, longer range, as well as some shorter range supplement. You have excess sets to punch back, but limited range. And outside of that, you do have torpedoes, but your detection capability is not great. Then again, if they're providing air defense and are specialized in that role, I would understand why they're not actually going to be doing any helicopters stationing aboard this ship. Bayard. The Bayard class missile cruiser, commissioned between 1974 and 1978. French derivative, the Belknap. Again, designed to escort the Charlemore class aircraft carriers, these 6 cruisers mount a single-ended missile configuration featuring the Mazurka SAM system. So they got 60 of those, they got 24 Crotals, they got 8 exocets. They got a 5-inch gun, an ASROC launcher for anti-submarine warfare, try not to laugh. The class incorporates French sensors and electronic warfare systems in place of American counterparts, making them fully integrated into the French naval doctrine. Yeah, what can I say? It's a French Belknap. It isn't that different, except for the Mazurka, which still has your 40-mile range. I imagine it comes out of that launcher there. They got your gun on the stern. They do have a helo, which is helpful. Yeah, it's not that much to talk about. And then the Destion, or Destion Drevet. Constructed between 1967 and 1978, French-built derivatives of the American Knox-class frigates, but with French kit on it. So we're seeing the Crotal as their only defensive weapon. And then we have X-sets for offense. And take note how most of the French ships only carry 4 missiles. The Russian ships are going to kind of laugh these out of the room, because 4 missiles is definitely not sufficient to kill things. We also have the Albatross anti-submarine weapon, which is, what, like a version of the Akara? Yeah, comparable to function to the British Akara and the American ASROC, the Albatross carries a lightweight homing torpedo. What I really want to know is what type. Because if it carries that awfully shit French torpedo, that, what, 2.8 mile range, then I have absolutely no interest in it. If it carries a Mark 46... I'd feel much more at home using this weapon. Of course, your first line defense is going to be your helicopter. And it drops a Mark 46, thank God. Not that weird French thing. As for their other systems, nothing too much special. You got your one gun. You got noisemakers and chaff. Please take note that there is a desperate lack of a close-in weapon system. That means that if you get shot at and it bypasses the Crotal, your only other option is chaff. And good luck with that. I have seen it definitely deflect some missiles, but I wouldn't rely upon it as a very solid option. Alright, I think that covers pretty much all, well, not all of the new ships, but at least a bunch. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. I might do a mission or two, or scenario or two with these ships. If there are any other mods that you'd like me to cover, please let me know down below in the comments. I thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon for more Sea Power.